Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's okay today. So
Yes.
today's topic is domestic abuse
Wow.
and mental health. So what is the legal definition of domestic violence in the UK? Well, the government definition of domestic violence and abuse is any incident or pattern of incidences of controlling, coercive, or threatening behavior, violence or abuse between those aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members regardless of gender or sexuality. We can see in the slides, it says at the middle, at the top there, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men experience domestic abuse. Domestic abuse can cause low self-esteem, low self-worth, loneliness, confusion, sleep disturbance, feelings of helplessness, and concentration difficulties. That's shown on the slide at the top right-hand corner. Women are more likely than men to experience multiple incidents of abuse. Different types of domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and stalking, and in particular, sexual violence. Any woman can experience domestic abuse regardless of race, ethnicity, or religious group, sexuality, class, or disability, but some women who experience other forms of oppression and discrimination may face further barriers to disclosing abuse and finding help. Domestic abuse exists as part of violence against women and girls, which also include different forms of family violence, such as forced marriage, female genital mutilation, and so-called honor crimes that are perpetrated primarily by family members, often with multiple perpetrators. Sorry, I've got runny nose. Sorry, forgive me. Sorry about that. I don't know, Cicely, if you could show the rest of the slides, please. And on the slides, you can see on the far right is the cycle of violence and the different stages. So the first stage is the build-up phase. The second stage is the explosion phase. And the third stage of the cycle of violence is honeymoons, or the honeymoon phase. The unprecedented lockdown restrictions forced women to isolate with their abusers. Reported cases of domestic abuse rose by 10% in 2020, with lockdowns having an inevitable impact, police have said. We can see, sorry, can you show the previous slide again, please, Cicely? Thank you. And on the far left-hand side in the purple box, you can see some statistics. So these are domestic abuse and mental health. It says 70% of depression experienced by women is linked to domestic and family violence. 18% of all anxiety orders in women result from experiencing domestic abuse. Sufferers of domestic violence have an increased risk of attempting suicide, and they are more likely to experience issues accessing health services. Research suggests that women experience domestic abuse are 3 times more likely to experience a mental health problem. Women with mental health problems are more likely to be domestically abused, with 30 to 60% of women with a mental health problem having experienced domestic violence. Victims of domestic violence experience diminished self-worth, anxiety, depression, and a general sense of helplessness that can take time and often professional help to overcome. When in a violent relationship, you may have thoughts such as, I'm scared, you're upsetting me, not again, please stop, I'll be good. The minute you wonder and ask yourself, is this domestic abuse? It probably is. Don't think twice about seeking help if you are suffering from domestic abuse, no matter who you are. And remember, domestic abuse is everybody's business. Thank you.
Fantastic. Tombe, thank you so much for taking us through that beautifully land, setting the scene. And as you have concluded, it's everybody's business to really address or deal with domestic abuse. And this is right, as this idea says that it shows that the moment you ask your question whether this is domestic abuse, it probably is. Yeah, if you look at those images, quite traumatic, but these are things that happen and we still doubt whether it is a domestic abuse. And on that note, I would say I'm aware that this conversation can be very emotionally draining or triggering. So if anything triggers your past experience, please feel free to get contacts with the national bodies or even within us. Just give me a call, and we have quite a team here who can support each other. So please feel free to share your experience and really to emphasize on the need to be part of these 16 days of activism. I would want to share a short video clip so that you can buy into that and be a part of, or meaningfully be part of that. So give me a minute to show that. Okay, I'll stop sharing and share again. So think about the one thing that you're going to do listening to this video clip here.
Together we can stand against gender-based violence. So let's stand together, stand with us.
16 days of no violence against women and children. And we want you, all the men, to stand up and protect our kids and our women. We are here because of you ladies, and the kids are our future. It's our duty to protect our women and our children.
Hi, I'm Brad, and I would like to encourage and empower men to speak out when they see something wrong. I support the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, and I hope you do as well.
Ons moet staan, ons moet ons voete neersit en ons moet staan teen hierdie vroue en kinders wat mishandel word, wat die abuse of mans en vroue mishandel word elke liewe dag. So kom ons staan saam en kom ons support hierdie vroue en kinders.
I would like to empower or encourage fathers to take a stand against the gender-based violence because I've seen so many of our sisters, our moms, are falling victim to gender-based violence. 16 days of activism should be an everyday message.
Manne spesifiek dan ook sê asseblief tog kom ons neem ons regmatige plek in. Ons dink aan ons ma's wat vir ons so voortgebring het en dan ook dat ons vir hulle respekteer en hoekom kan ons dan ook nie ander vir ons dan ook respekteer nie. vroue bemagtig julle self. Die Engelse woord wat hier staan is empower yourself. Jy hoef nie so mishandel te word nie. Daar is 'n reg. Jy kan opstaan en sê jy is ook 'n mens.
Good day, my name is Jason Lottering. In English time, it's difficult for women and children, but we want to educate you. 7 FM.
16 days of activism is just a bare minimal reminder of what we should be doing.
What is this?
All year round. As much as women are in the forefront, we encourage that men should join the forces and be on the forefront as well and stand together in the fight of violence against women and children.
Oh, excuse me for my internet cutting on and off. I hope it will not going to be a further problem with that. But yes, you fund for yourself. And what they are asking for there is bare minimum of what you can do. So at this point, as you digest what you have heard from Tobe and from that short video clip, I'll bring in Sarah to give us the updates of what is happening in the communities. And then Tahif will give us some polls. So over to you, Sarah.
Cecily, thank you very much. Sorry, I've also got a bit of a cold, so I'm sorry for my voice. Thank you for giving me the time today. And also that presentation by Tobe was really excellent. It's a very difficult topic, this, isn't it? And it's quite upsetting to think that, 18% of all anxiety results from domestic abuse. And we think how widespread anxiety is. That's a lot of women being affected. So actually this has really helped. Your presentations have actually really helped me this morning, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that Nina Crispin and myself from the Public Health and Wellbeing team at the Council are running a winter wellbeing campaign. So there'll be different topics and different information that comes out every week. So it started yesterday, so it will go out every Wednesday, and Ritu from ACRE is helping us share that, so you should all get it. But one of the topics is actually domestic abuse, and I think some of the information that's been shared today would be really helpful. And I might ask you, Cecily, actually also for that video clip, because I think it would be really good to share that across Reading if we can. So please do look out for that campaign, and please share it with anyone that you think might benefit from having information. There'll be lots of different things in there. Some of it is around COVID boosters and the flu jab. We've got information on making sure that people's houses are warm enough and what help and benefits they can get to support them with that. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that we didn't do it last year, but every year, usually my team puts together a kind of a guide, I guess, as to what's going on over Christmas and sort of the whole of December. So it's not only for people that celebrate Christmas, it's just for everybody to help people stay connected over that festive period, because we know lots of things start to close down. And especially if you think about in the context of domestic abuse as well, sometimes it means that people are finding it harder to leave the home. So it just has lots of information about what's happening, where people can go, how they can get involved in different things, social activities, dances, meals, sports, whatever we think people might be interested in. So once that's ready, I'll make sure Cecily has it, and again, I'll share it with Ritu. Please do look out for it. Please do share it with anyone, again, that you think might be interested. And if you've got anything that you'd like me to include in there, please do send it across to me. I can pop my email in the chat, or Cecily can share it with you, because yeah, we just want to get as much information out as we can and just make sure that no one really is lonely during that time of the year. So I think that's it from me, Cecily, unless anyone's got any questions, or I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you've always got a really good full agenda.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us and giving us those updates which we need in the times that we are in. And glad to hear that domestic abuse is going to be, or it is part of the campaign that you continue to do. And also the fact that you have mentioned the winter pressures. Yes, we are getting to that point, and we'll be engaging with you actively to really access the support that you're offering.
Oh, Cecily, thank you so much. I always appreciate your support and your help. Thank you.
Very welcome. Yeah. And on that note, actually, I see Ashley with us from Recovery College. Perhaps the Recovery College has, have a few things that we can access or link up to. So Ashley, if you're there and okay to give us any updates, we will appreciate.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't find the mute button. Yeah, so what we have upcoming starting, so Christmas for us is kind of like a quiet time because we stop workshops about halfway through December. And our perspectives for next year is being sorted out this Monday. But what we have coming up, so next week we have a course called Money Matters. So it's all about how do you budget your money? How do you deal with the stress that comes from your finances, especially with Christmas coming? It's the hardest time of the year for a lot of families. So we're running it now to make sure that that is covered. We just started a workshop on grieving losses as well. So we're talking through how to deal with grief. How does grief affect you? How do you healthily deal with it? That's what we have coming up over Christmas. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And especially that last course on grieving. I'm aware that Alice is with us, and I know there is a group that has been around. And from a cultural point of view, supporting people who are grieving, and it would be nice if they can link up with the Recovery College to see what is on offer and perhaps collaborate in what best they can offer. So I noticed Vita is with us here as well from ECA, and towards the end, you'll come in and give us more updates on what is happening in the communities. But for now, I'll bring Saif in to take us through the post, and then Annette will do some good, updates for us. Over to you, Saif.
Thanks, Cecily. Hi, everyone. Sorry I was late. I missed what Sarah was saying earlier, but I hope it was useful, informative. And welcome back, Cecily, as well. I hope you had a nice time away. So how is everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing well. I'm not going to say my infamous, thank God it's almost Friday, because last week I said it too much, so I'm not going to do that. One thing I wanted to mention before we get to the poll was something that the University of Reading is actually doing with Compass, something that we're doing together. So me and Ashley got together. We had a meeting about how to aim at the 18 to 25 age to kind of help with mental health. So hopefully in January time, we're going to open a coffee morning, which Ashley's going to come down to and some of his colleagues, for students to have that kind of space just to chat about things, anything really. And then hopefully if they do require more support, that they can be there to offer them the workshops and things like that. So that's something I'm really, really excited to get started soon. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. But poll time, yes. So today we have two questions. The topic is, of course, as you know, exploring domestic abuse and mental health. And there are two questions. Did I just say that? There are two questions, yeah. So hopefully you should see the polls on your screen now. So I'll read out the questions and just feel free to answer. And once I've read the questions, then I'll give everyone a minute or two just to finalize their answers. So the first question, how much do you think we talk about domestic abuse as a community? So there's three answers you can put. You can put a lot, not a lot, or you're not sure. And for the second question, how much do you think, as a community, we are aware of the link between domestic abuse and mental health? Again, there are 3 answers: 100%, 50%, and 0%. If anyone can't see the polls, do let me know, and I'll relaunch them, because I know we had a problem with that a few weeks ago where the polls just didn't show up. And I'm no tech expert, you know, so I have to try and figure out these things. So yeah, I'll just give everyone a minute just to put down their answers, and then we'll go through and discuss them. Brilliant. Just about 10 or so more people left to answer. Yes. Okay, brilliant. So I'll end the poll now and I'll share it with everybody. Hopefully you should be able to see the polls on your screen now and all of the answers. So for the first question, I'll read it out again. How much do you think we talk about domestic abuse as a community? So 14% of people said a lot, 71% said not a lot, and 14% said that they're not sure. I think that I would agree with the majority on this question. I think it's not something you talk about unless it's something that's applicable to you or someone that you know. So I don't think it is explored a lot, but maybe my answer would kind of delve into not sure as well, because again, I'm not involved in this conversation. Maybe they are happening and I just don't know because I'm not there. Would anyone like to come forward and talk about the answer they put down, why they put it, how they feel about it? Please raise your hand, come off mic. Let's talk about it. Oh, bye, Alice.
If we have a hand up from Anthony.
Yeah, are you there, Anthony?
Yes, can you hear me? I'm there. Good morning, everyone. You know, I put off my hand because I said that not a lot, you know, I mean, not a lot in from my content is that domestic abuse is always focused on women and children. But we should know that in the population, we also have men. Like if I look around the Reading setting, we have a lot of women organizations, even Otulivro Women's Organization, Alafia, you know, all this kind of stuff, they are headed by women we have within the community. But at the end of the day, we don't really have any strong established organization that deals with men issues. In a society, we are almost trained that men should be brave, you know, you should always swallow everything. So that makes us not to really think that men had also been abused. Thank God, like in ACA, we have this women group. And from that men group, I have spoken to a lot of men in that group. They tell me their grievance. We discuss some of these things. Then I see that, yes, some of them, they have been taken advantage of by women. But we don't talk about these things. So our focus is mostly on children and women. But we should know that men themselves, they are being under abuse. A lot of us, men, we have experienced those things. So I think we have to be fair here. That's what I selected, not a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for sharing that. And that's true, you know, as you say, there's that kind of stigma around how it's not really something that is focused on men, because men are, you know, essentially the abusers, like in a very stereotypical way. So are there any places like in Reading where you can go to talk about those things? I'm not actually 100% sure, for men specifically as well. Do you know?
We have a group we call Women, you know, is on ACA, is a new group that focuses on some of these issues. It's a men group that talk about men issues. And some of those people that participate there, some people there, you know, like we talk to them, some of them, they have some release because they know that they are not the only person that felt that way. They believe that there are other people that experience in the same situation. So we encourage everybody, contact ECA if you want to know about the women group, and you're going to find us there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anthony. And that's quite important to raise the awareness that ECA, you can contact ECA to talk about those things as well. So thank you very much. Ashley has raised his hand. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, in regards to resources for men to contact, there's a service called Men's Mind Matters, and they have a section on domestic abuse towards men. That is something that they're actually focusing on. So that is something that I've noticed in my research.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ashley. Let me just write that in the chat. Men's Minds Matter. Is that right? Did I write that right? Brilliant. And Sarah just put something in the chat as well about Berkshire's Woman Aid also does support men. Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. I suppose it's you wouldn't think so from the name, really, as you say, which is a shame. But as long as they do, I suppose that's really important. Would anybody else like to share what they put and maybe discuss some of the things said? Alison?
Hi, yes, thanks. Yeah, I head up the DASH charity, which is Berkshire Women's Aid equivalent, but in East Berkshire. And we support male victims as well, just to let you know. But I think it's not just that, and you're exactly right, men don't want to talk about it. I don't think society likes to talk about it. I think it's still got that stigma. It happens somewhere else to someone else. And we've got to raise awareness of it, that we will all know someone. Some people on the call may have experienced it, and we will all know someone, whether we know it or not. We'll know someone who has experienced domestic abuse. It's not something that happens in a, inner city Liverpool estate. It happens in Reading, it happens in Slough, it happens in Windsor and Maidenhead. So anything people on the call can do to raise awareness and talk about it and get it on the agenda would be really helpful. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alison. Why do you think, I'm curious to hear your point of view on this, but why do you think it's not something that's not talked about, or people don't want to talk about it? Why do you think that is from your point of view?
I think it's, I call it an inconvenient truth. I think we live in this wonderful society and we're kind and civilized, and it's just people don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but not for the victims, but for us as a society. It should not be happening, and it's getting worse. It's not getting any better. I know that's depressing to say, but I think we're getting better at recording incidents. But the pandemic, our referrals, our caseloads have doubled for adults and trebled for children. It's not getting any better. Why is it not? And it's not funded. We're not funded properly. And so it's this, yes, brush it under the carpet. We don't really want to accept that actually as a society, we're not that nice.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I noticed that, Ashley raised his hand and then I'll go to Grace.
Yeah, okay.
So with men, it comes from just a stigma of you need to be strong and you need to do this, you need to do that. So I think that's the biggest problem why men don't talk about it, because in society, it's viewed as shameful for being weak. So you're never going to admit that you've been abused or that you've been hurt, because it goes against what society expects from men. I think that's probably the biggest problem. It's not that we can't talk about it, it's that you get shamed to talk about it.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you, Ashley. Grace?
Yeah, I was going to say, in addition to all that, it could be lack of knowledge that what's happening is domestic abuse. You take it for granted. And some cultural attitudes and, practices, you don't realize you are in a domestic violence relationship. Yeah. Or what's happening with domestic violence. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. I 100% agree. Like, I think, as you say, it's hard to know because sometimes it can be in a situation where it's not physical at all, but it's all like mental abuse, you know, and you don't know how that's happening, where to stop, how to control it, any of that. So that is a really, really important point. I wouldn't know. I suppose that kind of like why don't we know? Why is that not something that we can talk about, that we do know? I think that's quite an interesting thing to think about. Mary's raised her hand.
Yes. Another thing is why people don't talk about it is the control. You know, the abuser always control the person that they're abusing. If they go out or speak to a friend, and they would think that, oh, that go out to the community and will be in problems or something like that. So they always control the people until it's really bad. That's when the person that is being abused that will come out and talk about it either publicly or to a friend. And then if a friend have other ways, like now in the forum, we have people that you can go to, that's when they go to. But sometimes it's really difficult and it's too late for them. I know people that are really hurt badly. One lady was, her jaw hurt or almost broken, but the husband was telling her, you're not going to the hospital. They're not gonna do anything for you. And then obviously myself and one other friend, we went there and cried because we have, if they go to hospital, she said she cannot go. So we have method that you can use hot water and all this, try to, you know, to do the swelling, to press the swelling down and give her some like paracetamol and all this. She totally refused to go to hospital because the husband convinced her that if she goes there, they will not do anything to her. He's just scared that if this lady goes to the hospital or to the GP, they will call police for him. He refused completely. And then you don't know what to do. But if it was like the wound or the did not heal, just anonymously, we're gonna call the police. But luckily she was better. And obviously the abuse continued, and the husband and the what do you call it? He traveled to Africa, he didn't come up to date. So that's another blessing. It's not good for the kids that the dad is not here, but again, they see the abuse and then they think it's the right thing to do. And then they will, when they have relationship, they will continue doing what the dad is doing to them, you know? So, and again, I will, because the guy that spoke earlier, it's not only the women, also there are a few men that are really getting the abuse as well. So we have to seek out exactly who is being abused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you very much for sharing that story. But I'm glad that your friend ended up, you know, recovering and she's doing well. So that's good. But I think that's such an important, like, example, really, of what can happen, how the physical abuse can kind of lead to the mental abuse as well. And and in her mind, you know, she must have felt so trapped, which is an awful, awful feeling. Eva, you've raised your hand. Would you like to come off mic and say something?
Yes, just following on to what Mary was saying, I just think, especially if I look at it back on an African setting, is who do you report it to even? Like the authorities would never do anything. And those, of course, with an African society, there is this thing of either women, especially women, are sort of the property of the man. So, and you sort of, if you find a bad person, they can almost do anything they want to you, which has always brought in the domestic abuse. Again, it's a question of education, you know, control. It's about freedom of people. It's about, it has been put into law that people are not allowed to have this kind of treatment. So it comes from very different angles. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Eva. I think that's quite an important thing that you raised there about how culturally men can feel like they own their wives, which is why they feel like they can do that. But I'd like to think that at least because I know that that was the case for like my grandparents when they lived in Kenya. Like whenever anything happened to my dad, like, you know, he'd get bullied at school, like that kind of thing. And he would tell his dad, it would always be like, shrug it off, you're fine, whatever. So then it kind of extends to the home life as well. Like it's kind of a shrug it off kind of thing. But I'd like to think that people are being educated more on it and people are kind of getting out of thinking that way. I know Alison was saying that it's kind of increased quite a lot because of lockdown, but I feel like that was because of lockdown. And otherwise it wouldn't necessarily be something that, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know. It's hard for me to accept it, I suppose. I don't like to think about it, but yeah. So thank you, Eva, for sharing. Would anybody else like to share anything about this question? For example, if someone's not sure, why are you not sure? I think that's quite an interesting thing to explore. Like, is it something that people have talked to like their families about? Is it necessarily things you talk to people in your community about? Well, I mean, your family is your community as well, I think. But it's for me personally, I wouldn't talk to someone who wasn't my family, or like, I'll talk to my best friend maybe, but they count as family. Like I wouldn't go out and talk to those people about it. So that's why I would be like kind of not sure, because I don't know how people go about those conversations and what context they have them. So it's tricky. But if not, we can move to, oh, sorry, Eva.
I was going to say, yeah, it's a tricky one. And I think with any sort of abuse comes a lot of shame. So with the shame comes the hard bit of talking about anything. I mean, as it rightfully Cecily and Tombe said, and I think a few speakers have said, it's such an emotive topic. It's something like, it's almost like you want to show, with everybody in life, everybody wants to be happy. And it's the last thing you want to show, oh, this is happening in my life, you know, and it takes a lot of courage, and that's why people need to talk about it, because the strength in somebody talking about it gives somebody else strength to talk about it. Because otherwise, if they don't hear it, then they think, oh, I can't say this. What will people think of me? What will, you know, it's the same thing that goes on about mental health. If I say, I'm feeling this way at work, how will people think of me? Because we always, an image perception always comes first, and how we want to be perceived. So I think the shame that comes with any sort of abuse or any sort of sickness or anything makes it really hard to talk about it. Yeah.
And it's tricky, as you say, like if you feel comfortable to talk about it, if someone else talks about it, because someone needs to break that mold first. What about that someone, you know, who is going to be that person to do that, which is such a tricky thing, a tricky position to be in, because as you say, it breaks space. And and especially in a thing like a work environment, you want people to think of you that way. You want people to think you're, you know, this lovely, bubbly, perfect person with not many issues, you know, but that's unfortunately not the reality of things. And unfortunately, it's tricky to talk about that.
Which is one thing I'm going to say again. Sorry, that's why I like speakers like Brene Brown, who have come in and said, with vulnerability comes courage. So I think we have to think about it the other way around. But it's about time to talk about stuff, because then when you be vulnerable, it allows everybody to actually feel closer and feel more open and feel more a less judgmental society would make it easier. Yeah. Okay.
No, I 100% agree. That's kind of a more specific subtopic almost, how being vulnerable actually makes you more courageous, because at the end of the day, you're opening up about things that people don't have to know about. You're opening up about yourself, that people shouldn't shame you for that, or you shouldn't feel ashamed for that. They should kind of look up to that, like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have the confidence to go to people and talk to them about these things that I can't talk about and keep bottled up, which ultimately kind of affects someone's mental health in the long run negatively, unfortunately. Anthony, you raised your hand.
Yes, I mean, like for me, I take situation personal. I believe, yes, statistics give us information, but at the end of the day, statistics is like the institution that we go to. They only teach you the foundation, but they don't teach you everything to become educated. That job lies with you to do your own investigation and research. From my personal point of view, sometimes there is a lot of people, whenever they talk about their personal issues, they feel that they are being shame, you know, so for that reason, they don't do it. But I see the positive aspect about talking about situation. One, it is the tension within myself. When I was a little, somebody gave me a good proverb. They say, there are certain form of secret within your life you have that you cannot express to people around you because you feel ashamed. But you also have the opportunity to tell a stranger. For example, I'm flying from the UK to Australia. I met somebody in that plane. I'm not going to meet that person again. I can empty myself to that person and I listen to what they're going to say because they don't know anybody behind me. They don't have no idea about me. Whatever they get about me, they cannot make use of it to affect me. I use that in different way. I narrate my story. There's a lot of vulnerability around me, but I use the positive aspect of that vulnerability to empower other people to do likewise. I am not going to tell you my story for you to feel pity for me. I tell you in a form that I have conquered it. I have defeated that issue. That is the reason I'm bold enough to talk about it. So if we all have this kind of perspective, that we are not telling people for us to feel that we are making ourselves vulnerable, or we see the positive aspect of it, that we have overcome the situation. That is the reason we are talking about it, to help other people, because we know we are not the only person and we are not the first. I think if you have those kind of mindset, you will be able to conquer some of these things. And domestic abuse is one of those things. Let me like, for example, when I was growing up in high school days, I have a lot of girlfriends around me, but I've always refused for my male friend to go into a relationship with these people, because the moment I see things start happening, I will explain to you the exact way I know about this person, because tomorrow I didn't want you to become a victim. If you want to become a victim, prepare for yourself at the earlier age for you to do those things, you know. It was just a kind of open things, you know. We have to be outspoken about some of these things to defeat the stigma attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I think that is a brilliant point. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I really like the idea of talking to a stranger about something, and then you can kind of build confidence from there to talk to other people about it. I suppose a lot of it, as Eva said, we're not taught. Sorry, I don't know if it was Eva who said it. Someone said we're not taught to, not learn to talk about it. That is an excellent way to kind of get into it and be like, oh, this is how I can talk about it. This is how people will respond. This is how I can take it forward to other people, which I think is really, really important. Brilliant. So does anyone else like to add to what Anthony said, make another point of their own? If not, I'm going to make another point, but I want everyone else to have a go first.
Saif, can I say something? I think that it's been already mentioned to some extent, but in a real life situation of domestic abuse, if somebody were to even to go to their mother-in-law or their mom or their dad or their best friend and say, oh, I was beaten up last night, there's a lot of abuse going on in our household. The first thing that, I'm talking about a real life situation, the first thing that the other person would say is, well, what did you do? What did you do to make that happen? And imagine to have to cope with that. And for that reason, people, men as well as women, don't talk about it. We're very reluctant to talk about it, because in the first place, we have to deal with being assaulted like that. And then in a way to also be accused of causing it. It's like a double whammy. So there's this great reluctance to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Constance. I think that is an excellent point you raised. And it's funny, I kind of, like, you can kind of draw similarities to like how the conversation around women and people being raped, how it's like, what did you do? Like, what were you wearing on this night out? That kind of, it's a similar thing, isn't it? It's just quite interesting. Anthony, I see that you have your hand up, but due to time, I'm actually going to move to the second question, if that's okay. I'm terribly sorry. So for the second question, the question was, how much do you think as a community we are aware of the link between domestic abuse and mental health? So I'll read that again because I didn't process that. how much do you think as a community we are aware of the link between domestic abuse and mental health? Okay, so 19% of you said 100%, 67% said 50%, and 14% said 0%. That's quite an interesting dynamic. Would anyone like to come forward and discuss their answers or the trends on the poll? I think personally I would go somewhere between 0 to 50% because I think that it's quite, at least in my community, in the Pakistani community, it's not really something, domestic abuse, if I'm honest, is quite a common thing in Pakistani society, communities. I wouldn't say anymore, but like, you know, my parents' parents, you know, they had a lot of abuse when they were kids, and that kind of stems down. And it's like an unspoken thing in the Pakistani society that, you know, your dad hits you with a slipper, or, you know, whips you with a belt, that kind of thing. I know it may not seem like a big thing, but when you're 5, 6, it can be quite detrimental. And I don't really think that is linked to mental health that much, especially in the Pakistani community, because mental health is not a thing that's discussed. Mental health is a thing that's of the, you know, mental health only affects you if you don't have 3 meals on your table and a roof over your head, you know, that kind of thing. So that I would definitely go on the lower side of that answer. Would anyone else like to talk about their experience and what they think? Oh, I'm talking way too fast.
Saif, I think that we are probably now in this part of the 21st century beginning to link it, because we still have difficulty in recognizing or defining mental health. You know, for example, in some communities, a person has to be staring crazy, staring mad to be recognized as somebody who has mental health problems. Things like depression and anxiety aren't regarded as mental health issues. And we've now begun to openly mention things like domestic abuse. And I know that we've been talking here so far about physical abuse, but there's something like emotional abuse. What about the man or the woman who calls the man out of his name, you know, swears at him, degrades him, makes him feel as though he ought to go back into his mom's womb? That's a form of abuse also. And we haven't even begun to touch on that as yet. We're still talking about the physical thing.
Would you like to do you want to talk about that? About more emotional abuse?
Yes, because emotional abuse is also a weapon. It destroys. Anything that destroys is abuse. If I were to talk down to my husband, you know, curse him, tell him about his mom, tell him about this, that, tell him about parts of his body, that's destruction. That's destroying him. So that's abuse. But we don't talk about that at all. Well,
that is true.
Some people in some areas, but we need to be talking about it more and more.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that's not, because it's not visible, right? Because you don't get a bruise in your arm when someone says that to each other. I think that's why we don't talk about it, because we can't see it. It's not there. It's not something that, and because of that, it's not actually talked about either, in my opinion, anyway. Anthony, I see that you raised your hand. Would you like to say something?
Still mute. So like as Constant was saying, my standing point about male abuse is the mental aspect of it. You know, is the mental aspect of it. Because like she was telling us, this has no physical visibility. You know, you don't have any kind of physical appearance or impact on your body. It's happened mentally. And sometimes most of the domestic abuses, we have cases of domestic abuse, it starts with the mental bullet, what I describe as mental bullets, exchanging the words. And something that I know, I've had a lot of women friends, women, because of, when it comes to physical challenges for us to throw blow at each other, definitely it's going to be few women that can defeat a man. And even though, because the fact that you are a woman, you are beating a man, that person will not even cry because they have mentally prepared themselves to absorb all those pain. So women have learned to use language, like she was saying. They play on language so much that it affects you, then it can even change a good man into a devil. And then you react. Then when you react, it is from there the authority pop in. Sometimes people set you up. I've experienced a situation where somebody set me up. They say something. When this thing trigger my result or like my reply, they start recording this thing. But what brought about the conversation was not part of this recording. And when I hear that, I said, why is it like this? Sometimes people use some of these things as an evidence so that they will confront the authority to make their points clear that this is how it goes. So I support her 100%. We should start focusing on what brought about this issue before even the physical attack comes in. One thing that I really know, if I promise myself that, yes, this lady or like this woman, she's part of me, I feel her pain if I touch her in a painful way, because they say this is part of you. Nowadays, our society, they talk about partner, but my own society, from a Christian perspective, if you have a woman, it's your wife, and your wife, the two become one flesh. So when she feel pain, I should feel that pain. So why would I sit down again and start abusing her if something doesn't really happen somewhere? So I support her statement 100%. We should focus on the root cause that leads to some of this abuse. Sometimes we focus on the end result most of the time. That is the reason things like this happen in the society. And everything is about good communication. If we can communicate well, we know how to play with our languages in our relationship and our friendship, abuse will be reduced.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I think that's really, really important points that you raised. And someone has said in the chat that there is no excuse for violence. It doesn't matter what you were talking about before this. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Jeff, you raised your hand.
Yeah, hello. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so just. But I was just gonna say, growing up in an African family, like mental illness was it's like a myth, really. It's something that recently I'm kind of learning more about. So that's why I thought like almost close to zero, because it's not something we really discuss. As the lady said earlier, it was like, unless you're like in the street shouting, there's nothing wrong with you. And so it's something I'm kind of learning now and kind of thinking, am I having a down day, or is this a problem kind of thing, and trying to go to the right places for. So yeah, that's all I've got.
No, thank you, Jeff. Don't say that's all you've got. That's an excellent contribution, and it's really important that you admit where you are and where you want to be as well. So I commend you for that. So I'm going to bring you Annette now. I think Annette had her hand up. You're on mute, Annette.
Yes, listen to everyone. All been said this morning. I have lots of things written down on my bit of paper when I spoke to Cecily this morning, but most of that's been, covered by everyone that's taken part so far. And as regards to the questions from the questionnaire, it's about the controlling behavior. I mean, I don't think none of us were born violent. We were born, it's a learnt behavior. So if you see your parents or your friends are disrespectful to each other, it may be somewhere you'd want to go. Some people will feel, oh, that's not very nice. I've not experienced this before. But if it's something that you see perpetuating between your parents, your friends, it's something you feel that's okay. I can do that. the coercive behavior where you sort of putting people down, let them feel less, you know, talking to them in an inappropriate way, you know, to make people feel less than. That happens, but you're not born that way. That's something you've learned. And depending on the people you have around you, you're more likely to be doing that. You have to have different experiences to show you the way how to treat. I always think of, I would not treat someone less than how I would want to be treated myself. So that's the first place I go. So if someone were to upset me, the first thing isn't to lash out to them because that's hurting me, is to think, oh, would I like that feeling? Sometimes you hold back from that. That's how I personally deal with it. But everything that everyone have said so far today as regards to the polls, the mental health aspect of that also. You talk about, it can affect you. If someone keep picking at you all the time, whatever you do is never good enough. You know, we are different people. We have different ways of doing things. We have to learn to live with each other. If you're a man and a wife, you have to learn. Your wife comes from a different family. They may have done things in a different way to how your family do it. So you have to take that responsibility as on you. This is your family. Are you going to abuse your wife, you know, or your husband in front of your children? You know, if your children see that, they're going to replicate that behavior in their own relationship. You know, so, you know, it's a matter of learning and trying to find a better way. There are some people who, you know, they get so angry. Why are they so angry? Why everything just set a nerve? They might just, the partner might just say something quite innocently and it's taken out of context and it's a big fight about, you don't know where it starts from. You end up slapping somebody or saying unkind things to that person, and yet that's the person you live with. You know, obviously there are mental health issues here. If you can't, you know, treat the people around you that mean the most to you, if you feel that you have to beat them, punch them in their face, you hurt them, they can't even go to the hospital, a friend cannot help them, you know, what does that say about you? For in that instance, I do believe that person has some mental health issues and need to get some help somewhere. And I think everyone here has contributed great to this talk this morning. I don't think there's any more I can add. I'm not an expert. It's just what I've observed. You know, but I always think, you know, people have different issues. It may be from they were children, how they were treated, and they know no different. And someone mentioned in their society, some society men feels they own their women, so they can treat them anyway. But if that person you have in your life brings value to your life, why would you want to treat them that way? You know, so there obviously something is not quite right, and we need to talk about it more. We need to reach out. I mean, all those other organizations who said, you know, men can go to. I mean, I don't think it helps anyone degrading anybody, you know, whether it be a man or woman. And of course, men, again, feel it's, if their wife, you know, speak them into such a way, or their wife might bully them in a way, you know, they don't feel they can go and talk to other people about it because, you know, men's got to be strong, where we are human beings and we have feelings. Every one of us have feelings, from the baby to an adult. And as I said, these are mostly learnt behavior. They're something that people have experienced, or they watch films or movies, or they see certain things that influence the way they feel. They can talk and treat other people. I don't really think there's any more that I can add to this conversation, but I think every person that spoke today had something really valid and it touched someone's life. And because we're talking about it today, you know, people can go away and think about even their own behavior. Sometimes even in your own relationship, say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have spoken in that way, you know, and apologize if you do something wrong. Not try and leave someone feeling they can't turn to anyone else. They feel isolated. Then that, again, on the women, it causes them mental health. They're having to deal with, a woman have to run a home, their husband may go out to work. They also may go out to work as well. Lots of women work now with their children and family. And there's a lot that women having to, take on in their life. And they've always done. And, they're normally there to support, because a man is born of a woman. A woman gives birth to a man. So why is it? And those men who do these things, they have mothers, they have sisters. Don't they think when they're abusing their wife, do they abuse their mother? Do they abuse their sister? And some of these things that they have to look into, but we have to keep talking about it. And I think that's the only way that we're going to, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if you've been abused, but people do feel ashamed because it makes you feel, oh, I don't want to talk. I have this lovely home and I have this lovely family. And I have to creep in like a mouse. I can't go out the house without having to say where I'm going, what I'm doing. I can't, certain friends I have who were good to me, I have to not speak to them anymore because my husband doesn't like it or my partner doesn't like it, and then the children are witnessing all of this. So all this turmoil that's going on in their home, where are the children going to go? They're going to feel that's a part of their life. That's normal to them. That's normal behavior because they haven't experienced anything else. So I feel that this is a really important topic and I think we should explore it even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Annette. I think that was a brilliant point you raised, and I agree with everything you said. I think it links quite closely to what I think is Victor behind the ACRE person on Zoom, that the abuse has been conditioned into us through our cultural upbringing for millennia, and we're only now beginning to address this issue. I think that links quite closely to what you were just saying about how it's you kind of see it as a child, you see it happening to adults around you, or you are experiencing, and then all of a sudden it's all you know. So then the cycle just continues and continues. So that is sad thing, but thank you very much for bringing that up. Cecily, did you want to take over?
Oh yes, not take over, but you continue with the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Really liking the conversation, and Annette, thank you for summarizing that so well. Because you've given that call to action. Let's talk more about it, but more so as an action. But more so, let's do. Let's access the services that are available. But sadly, the services that are out there perhaps are not enough for all of us. And if they are enough, we are not really touching the real cultural issues that come along with that. Because as it has been, as a fact, it says 85% of the victims sought help on average 5 times to professionals before they got the actual help. So they have gone from the first, second, third, and the fourth, and then the fifth is when they have gotten effective help. On that note, equally, we know that most people before they get the help, they will have experienced domestic violence for more than 3 years or so. So such a long time. And in that length of time, their children involved. So clearly from the post, there is need to talk more about it. But also when it comes to the link to mental health, it's only 50% of us here who agree that there is that link. So that means there is an action to be taken. Yeah, we need to make it 100%. And to really explain that further, let me share a short video clip to show that big link between mental health and domestic, or between domestic abuse and mental health. But thank you for the conversation so far. So let me do this. And then we can further have the conversation.
Intimate partner violence can have a tremendous effect on someone's mental health. People who are previously very happy and healthy can begin to have symptoms of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The perpetrator of the violence can sometimes use their own mental health symptoms as an excuse for perpetrating the violence. So saying things like, it wasn't me, it was my bipolar, or, I don't remember doing it because I blacked out, or you can't leave me because I'll kill myself. All of these things can be used as ways to control the partner as a way of perpetuating intimate partner violence. One of the issues with intimate partner violence is that there's a significant stigma associated with it. But we have to remember that intimate partner violence affects many people, regardless of class, race, age, and gender. There are lots of resources available. Einstein has a dedicated intimate partner violence counselor. There are also local organizations that provide help, as well as national organizations. And we encourage you to reach out to any and all of them for assistance.
Wow, so there is help out there, and really happy that the public health team within the council are running that campaign. They are part of that 16 days campaign, or rather domestic abuse is part of the 16 days of their campaign. Yeah, so but let's hear your thoughts on that short video clip with regards to domestic abuse and mental health. Any views on that? Although I know you have talked a lot about it, and especially what Anthony was explaining there, being triggered to be more violent, and then, of course, mentally reacting to being violent. No excuse for violence, but a lot can happen through being triggered to do so. But any views on the ground?
Can I say something, please, Cicely?
Yes, please.
I think one of the takeaways from that that little video there was that sometimes abusers who suffer themselves from mental health issues may use that or weaponize that in order to inflict their partners with domestic abuse, and it almost gives them an excuse or a reason for them to abuse their partners. So I thought that was quite profound, so it almost puts the blame onto the person who is being abused, and they might even feel guilty. It's that, oh, it's not really his fault, he's suffering from a mental health issue, if he didn't, he wouldn't do this to me, and it's all my fault. So I think that's quite an important point there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tombe. And this is what we experience quite a lot of. So, point to be taken there and take the necessary actions. So, Annette, you're putting your hand up, but I see Alison's hand up. So after Alison, Annette.
Thanks, Cecily. Yes, on that subject, I'm a trained, it's not what I do now, but I'm a certified domestic abuse perpetrator program facilitator, which I did for about a year in Reading. And there were people in those groups, they were all men across all ethnicities, ages, social backgrounds. And our observation as facilitators was that, yes, they'd all had challenging childhoods. And then I'd observed that lots of women, and it is a gendered, mostly, whatever you say, it affects women more than men. Those are the numbers. That's not just the research that says that. But when you think about lots of women having difficult childhoods, but they don't all turn out to be, not that everyone does, but there are so fewer female perpetrators than male. So to me, it comes back to this patriarchal society, what some of the things that have been said earlier, boys don't cry, men have to be strong, men can't talk about these things. Someone said to me the other day, excuse me, well, what about, you know, the prevalence of young men and suicide rates? And I said it's the same root cause, the same root cause of these patriarchal stereotypes, and we're still dealing with that now. People think that's gone, particularly in this country, and I've done lots of work around the world, and it's obviously different in every country. But I have people saying, oh, it's not like that anymore, Alison, you know, it's not this misogynist society, but it is. It still is. You know, are we further ahead than others? Possibly, yes, hopefully, but there's still a way to go with it. And I think it's really useful to get down to the root cause. You know, you can't blame alcohol, you can't blame drugs. We have to get as a society down to the root cause of why, and it's all about power and control. It's all about power and control. Why do people, whoever they are, male, female, whatever, why do they feel this need for power and control over someone else? And that's where it comes from. And that can come out, as has been said already, whether it's physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, psychological, sexual. We've seen a massive increase in economic abuse during the pandemic, with people being deprived of financial resources to even eat. And that's all about power and control. So I just encourage us all to think about what those root causes are.
Fantastic. And I think it's when we dig deep down to what the root causes are that we address the real issues as opposed to the symptoms that we see. So thank you for that. Annette, your hand is up, and then we'll go to Susan and we'll bring Victor in to summarize for us.
Well, I have a similar opinion to what Alison was saying. You know, it's about control, and you know, people may have issues. Yes, they may have it from a child. They brought up in an abusive, or around them they see abuse. They see that women are treated less than, and therefore, you know, women aren't. They just take women for granted that they're there to serve them, and therefore, you know, some men may have some mental health issues, but there are some who, you know, they just want to have control and ensure that, you know, people around them, they are controlling. And it doesn't matter sometimes, even for their own parents, they would also want to control when they reach a certain age. They're not, you know, they're not discriminating. And the people around them, you know, they just want to control the narrative, what they want, how they see it, how they will look to their friends. If they look, you know, there's all this sort of thing that goes on in a lot of cases with men. And rightly say, a lot more women, and I'm not saying men haven't been, you know, treated in by some women who has had the difficult life, or they just feel that they have to had enough and they're just standing up for themselves now, and they're not going to take kind of abuse. And some men doesn't like that because they always want to be in control of what they're doing. And again, as I said, it's a learned behavior, and we have to, you know, keep calling it out, trying to find ways of dealing with it. Let the men and women know this is not acceptable to treat people or anyone in that way less than you, to let them feel bad. And when you abuse them and they're hurt, you're not even allowing them to get, because you're too scared of the consequences of your behavior. And it's taking responsibility for your behavior, how you treat someone else. And if you have an issue, try and deal with it. Speak with someone else, seek help. When you battered your wife, break her jaw, or your partner, hit your children in a way that they're bruised or they can't go out, they can't talk to themselves, you know, what power does that give you? Why can't you see that you need to go for help? Because that's not a normal way of behaving with the people you supposedly love and care for. So we just have to keep talking about it and highlighting it. And if it's even meaning in shaming people to go and help, that, you nobody got to know that they're ashamed. They just know that it's out there, and they need to look and reflect on the way they deal with their situation. And that's really, that's what I think anyway. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette, for sharing that. I hope you can hear me. I changed. I had to leave, so I'm outside now. But I hope it's not too loud. But yes, thank you very much, Annette, for sharing that. We wanted to go next to Susan, and then after that, I'll go to Victor to talk about community updates. So over to you, Susan. Is Susan there?
Susan, you are muted.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you are muted, but now we can hear.
Brilliant.
I was saying I just agree with all the information that's been raised, but at the same time, like we said, there's no excuse for abuse. And if somebody doesn't share it, they will not get any help out there. Because I remember myself with my situation, I was actually a victim, and for me to share it got me to where I am now. And I don't always mind talking about it, because I know that it helps other people to know what is right and what is wrong in the society.
Thank you, Susan. Sorry.
And I was just saying as well, people have to, if we don't support the people who are in need, they are not going to be able to be functional within the society. And that's all I could say at the moment.
I thank you very much, Susan. I definitely agree with you. I think it's really important to keep those stories going and to have those things. So thank you for sharing. And I think finally we're going to go to Victor. And
please, sorry, Saif, please, before Victor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please. I can't see anything on the screen at the minute, so I do apologize. But yes, please do.
I know we've been talking quite a lot about the socialization process, but I want to raise another point in relation to how human beings act. And if we were to look at the Holy Scriptures, the Holy Writings, we'll see that, we could ask ourselves, even now, it doesn't matter what denomination, what religion you are, how did Cain know to kill his brother? Okay, it was like the first family. And the Scriptures do say that we were born in sin and we were shaped in iniquity, that we have this nature to be violent, to be unloving. And I think that we tend to ignore that quite a lot, that's the basic nature of man according to the Scriptures, that we're sinful, we do bad things. And some years ago, maybe some decades ago, when I was maybe 30 or thereabout, and I was working with some psychologists, and they were doing research in relation to violence and negative behavior. And they proved that if we put two young children together and we left them to play for a while, very soon they'll begin to hit each other. And these were children who didn't come from a dysfunctional background, but they would still fight. They would just hit each other in the head. And I think that these are things that we also need to consider. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Constance, thank you so much for that, because Lide, this is where now, some cultural elements comes in when it comes to faith. We can get some explanations of what is happening or currently, and if we draw knowledge from some of that information, we will deal with the violence that we all experience and we don't want other women to do. So thank you for sharing that. Victor, over to you for updates as you finish for us. But I think there is also, okay, go on.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. I find it interesting because if I was to ask, if the poll had asked, how many of us are abusive to our partners, I bet none of us would put our hand up, would say, oh no, we're just fine. And it just brings to mind the story that I want to narrate. I'm not challenging anybody on that issue. But my wife has gone back home to Sierra Leone and trying to, do a project. And she's being disregarded by the men that she meets because that's the culture of that environment. I've had more success being 8,000 miles away and making phone calls and getting things quickly done than with her being there, in person. But being a liberated person, she's been able to stand her ground. And that was what I was saying, when I posted the comment about us being conditioned in particular ways to behave to people in a certain manner. The society there takes women lesser than men. There's been, experiences where she's gone and paid for something and the receipt was issued in my name, even though I wasn't there. And that was here in the UK, at our embassy. So you say it's a long running issue, which we've only just started to address. And I think the key is not to let up, that we should be having these conversations even more as we go forward, because we need to be setting an example, as Annette rightly said, for our children, because some of this behavior is learned, some of it is accepted by our traditional communities. Which I think we should be breaking the mold of. I can vouch for my dad that he was a gentleman, but I wouldn't say the same for his brothers. And in our cultural tradition, when you marry one brother, you've married the family. So they can intervene, they can interfere, they can do, whatever they like that can be disrespectful. But I think the key to this is how we respond to one another as individuals. It's irrespective of whether the person is your wife or your partner or whatever labels, be they male or female. It's having that respect for them. And in this discussion, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning, I think, yes, there'll be a meeting here at ACA, organized by Utulivu and Oxford Against Cutting. They'll be looking at the impact of mental health on women. There should have been a commensurate meeting on the impact of mental health, issues affecting men's mental health as well. But we've had to cancel our slot for another day. But out in the community, there's so many issues that are affecting. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting on knife crime, which if you were to track some of the families that have been affected, many of them are single parent families. Not to say, not to cast aspersion on the parent, they're doing the best they can. But sometimes the support that they need from the system is not there. And we're trying to engage with as many members of the community in these discussions and in engaging with the authorities so that we can have our voices heard. Often enough, we say, well, you don't speak. And when you speak, you're not listened to. And when you're listened to, you're not heard. Well, even when you're listened to, you're not heard. So, but the key to it is, as somebody pointed out, is that in Reading, we don't riot, we talk. And it's, you know, to take that BT phrase, it's good to talk, and we must keep talking. And I'm sure we can make the change that we want to see. Okay, that's my 2 pence worth.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Victor, for that. Well done. Well done. Yeah. So yeah, fantastic and good conversation here, and really a good start of the 16 days of activism. We continue with this conversation next week, up to when we talk about FGM as we begin the season, fall it. And I'm glad that Oxford Against Cutting are here, because that's
Okay,
a
Cecily,
campaign.
can I just add one thing? That the men will be having a conference tomorrow, an online conference, and it's talking about men's welfare. And I've always said, if you leave things up to men, it wouldn't go as well as it should. So if we're discussing about 16 days of ending violence against women and girls and boys and men, I would welcome if you were able to attend the conference tomorrow. It's online in the morning, starting at 10:30. I can share in the meantime the link for the meeting tomorrow, please. Okay, over to you, Cecily.
Fantastic. And on that note, I would say, Alice, I see you there. You have posted a lot of very useful information, especially the Fountain of Hope comeback group on bereavement. I really hope we can make use of that service, because we all need it, and especially what has happened through COVID. So I'll say thank you so much, everyone. Think of the one thing that you're going to do every day until the 16 days of activism are over. And then that will build on what we'll continue to do after the 16 days to end gender-based violence. Yeah. So thank you so much. Have a good week, and let's meet again next Thursday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
See you later. Very good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Where's James today?
James is on holiday, so he'll be joining us.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Have a
Nice.
lovely-
Wonderful.
Lovely to see you back, Cecily.
Oh, thank you. I feel at home.
Yeah, and Annette, you've been away for a while. Annette, where have you been? And
Oh, yeah, I haven't been able to join for a little while because I have a lot of things going on. And, on a Thursday morning, I tend to be when it's happening. So, I was pleased to join again today. I did try to join last week, but of course, Cicely was away. And when I did text her, she said, I'm in Kenya. So I wasn't able. I thought, obviously there weren't a meeting the last couple of Thursdays, so I wasn't able to join on the Thursday. On a Tuesday, I've already got something on a Tuesday morning, so I'm not always available for Tuesday. I often save Thursday for this meeting, but the last few weeks, it's been a bit awkward to be here. For the time when it's on, it's normally more available in the afternoon than the morning on a Thursday. But I try to be here, as often as I possibly can. Lovely to see you, Mary, and Nancy, and Grace.
And Victor, you've been away for a while as well. Where have you been?
It's been so many different things, illness and busyness and whatever. The meetings tend to clash with this meeting, as increasingly clashing with strategic meetings with the police, the council, and other agencies. So that's why I haven't been able to join in the past few weeks. And the last 2 weeks I was off sick.
Are you better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
Yvonne, we're hoping you join us tomorrow.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we shall tune in. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.